Well, so far there's been some very close and clean racing. And with the finals qualifying order being completely randomized, it's sure to be exciting. Ethan, who's been doing quite well this tournament, will lead us away at the start. Jackson follows, and then it's Cooper. These two seem to have quite the fight on their hands for the lead, and they're followed by Tiernan. Jake is next in the order, and Garrett rounds us off.
Ethan and Tiernan have been doing very well so far, considering this is their first tournament, and it's good to see Garrett come back. I hope to see him make a few places. Cooper and Jackson are desperate to get around Ethan, and Jackson is in the best position to get it done in turn 1. Ethan cuts the beam and the race is underway. He leads the way for the final pack in his first ever tournament, but Jackson breaks later, and he's on the outside. He's gonna run the banking high and hope to get a better exit than Ethan, but Ethan takes it too far into the inside, and Jackson launches to the front. Cooper also gets the move done for P2.
You kind of want to use the banking to your advantage a little bit more. If you get on that inside curb, then you mess up the camber of the corner and you can lose a little bit of turning capability. That's what happened to Ethan, and that's what allowed Cooper to slip by into P2.
And it's Tiernan who makes his way into P3, but it looks like he got his braking a little bit wrong. The rear of the car stepping out, and he's dropped back into P4. Jackson leads now with a lucky start, but Cooper is not going to let him get away. He's going to make sure that gap doesn't get any bigger, and he's going to make sure that he can force Jackson into a mistake and take back the lead. And it's a close battle for P3 as well. Ethan's still having to fend off Tiernan, and Jake dropping back a little bit more. Garrett's still bringing up the rear, but he's got plenty of time to make up some positions, unless he's gone very wide there, which he might have done. I think he's kept it on the track.
Even if he did go wide there, you don't lose that much time going
Oh,
on.
and look at how close Cooper is getting to the back of Jackson. The fight for the lead is nowhere near over yet. Cooper is not letting that gap get any bigger, and he is staying right behind Jackson. Sparks from the bottom of the bright yellow Mercedes flying off and slamming into the onboard camera of Cooper's car. There's less than a car's length in between them, and it's been like that for nearly this entire lap.
These guys have broken away from the rest of the pack, but everyone else is in these sort of groups of two fighting for position, and it is still incredibly close between all of them.
Off camera, Jake makes up 2 positions, passing both Ethan and Tiernan, and making his way into 3rd place. It might be too late for him to have a chance at the win now, unless these two have a coming together. The 2 leaders, Jackson and Cooper, not giving each other any sort of breathing room whatsoever as they round the final corner now and head on to the straight. 500 horsepower V8s, revving all the way to 11,000 RPM. They are mind-numbingly loud, but they do sound very good.
That looked a bit like a twitch from Jackson. I think he might have had the counter steer going into the entry of the corner, maybe locking the rear wheels a little bit, but doing good to keep it straight.
We've seen that issue from a handful of other drivers, but usually it's where the circuit breaks off and forms the shorter club circuit. Just after this corner that our 2 leaders are going through now, Cooper not letting Jackson get any further away than he has so far. He's definitely putting enough pressure to make him start to crack, but he's still holding on to the lead as they go through the slowest corner on the track now, this sort of bus stop chicane.
The order hasn't changed since that last move from Jake, so the cars are starting to spread out a little bit. But I'm looking at those deltas, and I'm seeing Garrett catching up to Tiernan and Ethan.
And he may very well be, but it would seem that Jackson has just a tiny bit more pace than Cooper at the moment. He's not letting that gap get any smaller, and if anything, it's growing just slightly bigger by 1 or 2 tenths a lap. He's just clocked his first 1 minute 3 second time of this tournament.
And that's Tiernan, who's going to the inside of Ethan on the way into turn 1. Ethan might have a little bit more speed, but they're going to come close. They're going to bang doors. Tiernan's going to go deep. He's going to ride the banking high, but it's going to be too high, and Tiernan is off into the gravel. Garrett makes up P5.
Tiernan was being a little bit smart. He was trying to ride the banking high and get a better exit, but he didn't brake soon enough, and it was a little bit too optimistic. And there he goes over the curb into the grass again, losing even more time.
It's a shame to see a mistake like that, and we're seeing a little bit of a mental game going on as well. That's definitely getting to his head. He's made the mistake twice now. What he needs to do now is he needs to clear his mind, put his head down, and start cutting down that gap, because he has the pace and he has the talent to at least get close.
That gap between Cooper and Jackson is getting a little bit smaller now. Before it was half a second, now it's a full second. Cooper has to stay on him, and he has to get into Jackson's head. If he can do that, Jackson may make a mistake and give the lead to Cooper. And since these two are fighting each other, even though it doesn't seem like they're losing that much time, Jake is definitely catching just a little bit. It's enough to give him the clean air, and it's enough to give him an advantage. But even then, I don't think that Jake is going to be able to overtake both of them or even get horribly close without both of these guys making a mistake. That pace is not going to be enough. But Cooper is the one who has to find some pace somewhere because Jackson is pulling away, and if he gets any kind of sizable gap on Cooper, it's game over for him. We've just now crossed the halfway mark, and it still isn't clear whether or not this race is going to go the way of Cooper and give him his second ever win, or if it's going to end Jackson's losing streak and get him his 6th win.
Garrett is closing in on Ethan, but I don't think that gap is quite big enough to see any moves yet. But coming soon, we might have a battle for P4 concerning these two.
And now we can see that Jake, in that delta, is gaining a little bit of time to the two leaders. Before it was 4 seconds, now it's 3.8. I doubt that's going to be quite enough time to get into the fight, but here goes Garrett on the inside of Ethan. He gets the move done as well, but there's going to be braking into turn 1, obviously. Garrett's going to go high. It might be a little bit too high, but he's going to have a massive run on the exit. Look at it shoot out of that corner. Back into 4th place ahead of Ethan.
That speed difference on the exit was massive, and it illustrates very well why there's 2 lines that you can take there when you're racing somebody. Obviously, the high line will get you a better exit. It'll shoot you out of the corner so fast, but if you keep it tight, you might be able to block him off before he can get around you.
We did see that sort of tactical positioning on the inside in some of the elimination races as well. A couple of blocks. See, what you want to do is you want to apex as late as possible if you're on the high line. But if there's a car that stays to the inside the whole time, obviously you can't just drive through them. You might hit the back of them, or you might just waste your run that you got from riding the high line and lose time and stay behind them. That's why Zandvoort is such an interesting track. It kind of brings out these new elements and makes them so much more effective than any other track that we've run so far. Jackson seems to have a pretty good idea of how to keep it fast and how to keep it consistent. That gap is increasing, and he isn't seeming to have to push too hard. He seems fairly comfortable in that yellow Mercedes.
It would seem now that it's a game of can Jackson keep it on the track. Cooper is losing too much time in order to be close to make a move. The gap to Jake is also significantly larger now. It's about 2 seconds. I wonder if he's had it off somewhere perhaps.
Well, even if he has, he's made a big enough gap to where he isn't under threat from anyone. He isn't under threat from Garrett. He's 6 seconds back. So Jake can afford to make a couple of mistakes and hang on to 3rd place. But if he wants to do better, then I'm not even sure he can make up a place now. Even if one of these guys makes a very bad mistake, they'd have to spin out backwards in order for Jake to find 6 seconds on him. The way things are lining up now, it would seem that if Jackson can keep it on the track, he's going to be able to end his long losing streak and pick up his 6th win. But Cooper is going to be right behind him in case he does make a mistake. He might have a chance here at becoming the 2nd person to win a YGP tournament more than once. But it's now going to rely on whether or not Jackson can stay consistent for these last few laps. It's just 2 more to go now, and that gap is ever still increasing.
Garrett seems to be under pressure from Ethan. Ethan making sure that that gap doesn't get any bigger than half a second. There might be a fight for P4 still on our hands.
Garrett did pretty good today. He didn't make too many mistakes, and he made his way past 2 of the new guys. Going up 2 places after getting an unlucky start from the back of the pack, that's not too bad. There are now 2 laps left for the leaders as we switch back to see what exactly happened to Ethan. Yeah, that gap is a lot bigger than half a second now. Ethan's done a very good job considering that this is his first race. He held off Cooper and Jackson for quite some time.
Yeah, both Ethan and Tiernan did very good for their first outing. It was really cool to see them kind of fight these top guys for a couple of laps, at least in some of these races. It's not even that their pace was that far off. They just struggled a little bit with being a bit green and not quite having the consistency that the other drivers do.
Yeah, they both have shown a lot of talent and potential, but what they need is a lot more experience in order to keep up with Garrett, Jake, Cooper Jackson, all those guys. They've been doing this for a lot longer than they have. We hope to see them return, because if they keep working at it, I have no doubt that they will have a pretty good shot at winning a time trial or a tournament of their own. Jackson now on his way out of the penultimate corner and into the final corner, as there is now only 30 seconds left on the clock. Once he crosses the line, that will start the final lap, and he'll only have to keep it together for one more rotation. Cooper put up a very strong fight all tournament long, but Jackson figured it out, and now he's leaving him behind.
Yeah, he uses the banking quite a lot. He goes very high in turn 1 and turn 3. I think that's where he's making all that time.
I think so as well. A very important part of this track is your exiting speed, and taking that sort of high-low line will get you the best exit speed that you can. You can also brake significantly later because you're not trying to get to the inside of the corner as soon as possible and hold it there. It's a little bit different for these bank corners. You kind of sacrifice a lot of mid-corner speed, but you can carry so much more in and out. It kind of breaks the slow in, fast out rule, but in the end it works, and it may very well be faster as Jackson throws himself into the penultimate corner, sparks flying off the outside of that Mercedes front lip. Into the final corner we go now, with 2.5 seconds to the car behind. Jackson launches his way onto the final straight. He weaves in celebration. His 3-race losing streak will be over, and he cuts the beam. The race is over, and he picks up his 6th tournament win.
There's still a battle for P4. Ethan is quite close to Garrett, but Garrett might still be able to get a better run out of the final corner. He's definitely got a better line through there, and it will be Garrett coming in P4.
Cooper comes second, and Jake is in third. Like you said, Garrett is in fourth. Ethan comes home in fifth, and Tiernan, unfortunately, is in sixth. But it's a good debut for those bottom two. Jackson will also snag the fastest lap. And that's all this tournament wrote, but we'll be back with a brand new one very soon. We'll see you there.